Welcome everyone to one of Chart's free webinars. Today we have 24 stats and strategies to achieve hospitality training excellence in 2024. Welcome, Dana and panelists.
All right. Thanks, Tara. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. In today's session, we're going to dive into the 2023 Restaurant Operations Report with a specific focus on the training and HR-related findings. Really excited to share these insights with you and hope you find them valuable. So for me, I am Dana Parisi. I'm our Senior Content Marketing Manager here at Crunchtime. I'm joined by Rona, Chris, and Andrea, and I'll give my panelists some time to introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about their industry experience. So Chris, why don't you start us off?
Hi, my name is Chris. I'm with Silver Diner Development, Chief People Officer. It's been many, many years, 20 plus years at Silver Diner and in operations before that.
Great. And how about Andrea?
Well, hello, everyone. My name is Andrea. I am the Senior Training and LMS Manager for Silver Diner. I've been with the company for about 20 years, and my journey began as a host and found a home at Silver Diner that I did not expect to also become a career. And eventually, I developed into every position possible, transitioning into management and now holding the senior level. My experience has helped me in understanding the impact of training and delivering consistent hospitality, and I look forward to sharing everything I know with you guys today.
Great. And Rona?
Hi, I'm Rona Lascano. Started in industry as a server over 30 years ago at TGI Fridays. Went on to manage different full-service restaurants, including Starbucks as well, and also campus dining at George Mason University in Fairfax, Virginia. And moved out here to Lexington, Kentucky back in 2013, where I've been heading up the training and support team for the last 10 years.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. And before we dive in, I wanted to give a quick overview of this research, why we did it, how we did it. So, in the past few years, I'm sure you've all heard more about the state of this industry than ever before, right? But from our perspective at Crunchtime, we really wanted to pinpoint the true state of the industry, and there's no better way to do that than to hear from operators themselves. So how we did it, we commissioned at Crunchtime an objective quantitative research study in partnership with a company called Ensemble IQ. There were some requirements needed to take the survey. We got over 200 responses from restaurant industry professionals. They had to have decision-making authority or influence. Everything was completely anonymous, and each had to operate a minimum of 10 locations across full service, fast casual, or quick service. And this was in no way exclusive to Crunchtime customers. We really wanted to provide a broader view of the industry. So all of the data in the report and in this presentation today has been verified for validity and accuracy by Ensemble IQ. Awesome. Okay, so moving on. What we really saw throughout the findings that caught our eye was the number of times training and development responses rose to the top, and really just reinforced how that really impacts other areas of the business. So that's what we'll be covering in this section. All right, so before we get started, we're calling this our audience chat. So if everyone could just use the chat function, doesn't have to be fancy. Just type in what you think drives operational excellence. Could be one thing, could be multiple things. Just go ahead and pop those in the chat. Give everyone a couple seconds. See some responses coming in. Great. All right, so in our survey, to kick off our 24 stats, here's number 1 and 2. Really no surprise here, training and development are operators' top drivers of operational excellence. So the operators ranked employee learning, development, and retention as the top driver of operational excellence impacting the success of stores. They also ranked quickly and effectively rolling out new processes and initiatives in the top 3 responses, and rightfully so. Training and operations are inherently intertwined. But both of these really reinforce how critical it is to get training and onboarding right across stores. So first I'll start with Chris. Chris, are you surprised by these results? How's your reaction to them?
No, not surprised at all. We look at obviously at Silver Diner, training operations are inherently linked together. We know that creating a good path for individuals, creating the opportunity for them to hit the ground running uh, through through the development path, it can carry them all the way through to success in roles all the way up to senior executive roles. We know that as a fact, it works well for us. So definitely needs to be done right and done correctly to ensure that you retain the top employees.
Awesome. Thank you. So moving on to our next stats, we asked how much time is spent on training related activities. Operators said that each store spends 4.3 hours per week reporting, tracking, and analyzing training data, 4.7 hours per week per store validating employee knowledge, and 7.5 hours per week per store training and developing new and existing employees. So let me toss it over to Rona. What are your thoughts about this?
Well, I think these numbers really just a benchmark of how long it can take, and it really depends on whether you have a digital platform or using a manual platform, if you're full service, quick service, how many team members you're working with, what kind of programs you require. But the overarching message, I think, is that it takes time, it takes effort, it takes action to build, execute, maintain programs. One thing I've always said is just getting a toolbox like TalentLink, a learning management platform, doesn't build the house. You've got to make plans, open up that kit, and use all the tools. So it really is just showing that it's going to take time, and there's different pieces that you have to spend that time on.
So true. What about Andrea? Did you have anything to add here? Oh, I think you're on mute.
I am
Hey.
muted myself. No, I completely agree with Rona. Just utilizing the tools you have available and being consistent with it, as I saw in some of the comments here that people made, but just being consistent and committed to it will allow you to retain those benchmarks that have been shared.
Great. Okay, so another audience chat. How many days or weeks do you think it should take to onboard new store employees? Again, just type in your answers. I'll give everyone a minute or so to respond. See some answers coming in. All right. Okay. All right, and you can keep sharing answers here. I see some different responses rolling in. So as you're continuing to share, I'll dive back into the research. So what we found that operators want employees trained and shift ready one entire week faster. So operations leaders said it takes 19 days on average for a new restaurant employee to become proficient in their role, while they ideally want new employees up and running in just 12 days. So I mean, you all know getting employees trained up and ready faster gets them out onto the floor as soon as possible and allows them to start using what they've learned to have an impact on the guest experience right away. It also helps everyone get their work done faster and completed properly. But more importantly, I think what really drives it home here is that it makes the new employee feel like a contributing member of the team rather than a burden to other coworkers. And then taking it a step further, our next stats reveal that operators with more than 251 locations want to reduce onboarding time by more than half, 54%. So Rona, you have a large organization. I wanted to ask you, why do you think larger organizations are looking for such a dramatic change?
Yeah, with the increasing labor challenges that we've all been experiencing, we got a big pull from our franchise partners to shorten that initial training because they were having to train so many people so much more often. So what we wanted to work towards is getting people trained faster and helping with that retention piece. and helping get cross-trained faster so that gets some of that labor efficiency as well. So we shortened some of our courses runtime, but really focused more on layering training instead of focusing on one station at a time. And this just got them up to some kind of a contributing level a little faster. Maybe not competency quite yet, but able to contribute a little faster, and feeling less of a burden, like you mentioned earlier. With this approach, we really had to look at training as ongoing. And I saw a lot of comments about that too, but getting team members trained with their initial training faster so they're contributing, but really focusing on making sure that we follow up and continue to check on that mastering of skills as they go along.
That's great. I also wanted to call out full service spends about 3 more days getting employees trained compared to quick service, but both want to reduce the time to compensate by about 8 days. So Andrea, does this reflect your experience?
100% they do. And as we know, this becomes a demand, particularly when they become understaffed or when they allow understaffing to happen. And they want, like operators want fully trained people right away, which sacrifices training and their development as well, which if completed correctly and following through everything, we know that it drives to operational success. So I would say, yes, play with it a little bit. I'm glad that Rona, you're like making it work. But if you know that your training materials and everything works and it's proven to work, I would say that it's important not to fall short under the pressure and just commit to your schedule.
That's great. All right. So moving on to our next stats. This set of information will take a look at what respondents said about existing training processes. So first off, only 38% strongly agree that they have ongoing development programs for all levels to help improve retention and internal mobility. So Chris, I'll toss this one to you. We know that Silver Diner has excellent retention rates. Maybe you can share some of those. And what best practices can you share around development?
So we're very proud of our retention rates. Low level management turnover. Our management turnover last year was a whopping 4%, and our hourly turnover is less than 65% in the full service restaurant environment. We also link that to the fact that we grow sales. In other words, we're double-digit comps as well, year over year. And that we attribute to the fact of excellence in the development and training programs. We also know that we've proven out that ongoing development, career pathing allows us to retain folks, allows them to give opportunity to grow within the organization. Through Andrea's leadership, we've actually reduced overall training time in a lot of scenarios to facilitate operations, but at the same time, in that layering effect that Rona mentions, making sure that folks have that pathway really provides opportunities that's unique to our industry, to the hospitality industry in general.
It's great. And those are really, really impressive numbers. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
One other stat I'll call out here is that just about 70% strongly agreed that they're maintaining compliance across a variety of things. So they're feeling pretty good about that. All right, so on to our next stats. Only 24% of operators that responded strongly agreed that their training programs can be completed on a mobile device. This really surprised me. We live in a digital world. It's so important to meet today's app savvy workforce where they're at. The tools and apps that are as user-friendly and engaging as the ones they're relying on for everything else, that will really help attract and retain members of that younger workforce. And then on the flip side, again, about 70% strongly agreed that their stores enforce on-site training for hourly employees. So again, they're feeling pretty good about their compliance there. All right, so moving on, only 38% strongly agree that franchisees within their brand take responsibility for driving their own training success. So I wanted to pose this one to Rona. What are you doing to foster more of this with your franchisees?
Yeah, I'm on mute. Okay. For us, it's really been a lot about continuous training, communication, and then really appealing to some sense of competition. Our company sets focuses on quarterly goal every quarter. It could be something like Fry Station or guest service. And then part of this initiative is to have all our franchisees have their team members retake all of those station courses in our learning program. This helps them refresh in those stations. So this also gives them a prompt to re-engage with the learning platform. A lot of times with learning platforms, it's kind of a one and done, like you do it once at the beginning, once you're hired, you never look at it again. And this really gets them to re-engage, refresh, and have another reason to sign in again. And then we also put out a monthly newsletter to everyone on this platform. So this includes updates on some best practices from other users, and franchise partners love seeing what their peers are doing. And to appeal to their spirit of competition, we post leaderboards on completion rates of courses, and then we give do raffles for winners for certificates for logo gear for their team members. So just a lot of reason to re-engage and that sense of competition, a lot of communication, and putting a forum in for different users to give best practices.
That's great. Awesome. And then last here, a little over 40% strongly agree that their stores keep employees engaged during training and effectively validate their knowledge. The data also revealed that smaller sized organizations are more effective at knowledge validation compared to larger organizations. And we'll touch a little bit more about knowledge validation in a few slides. All right. So, as I mentioned earlier when we kicked off, throughout the findings, these leaders expressed that improvements in training and development really play a huge role in driving success in other parts of the business. A hot topic that obviously you all are dealing with every day is labor costs. So we asked them, what are their top strategies for reducing labor costs? And the top 3 answers reflected training, incentives, and retention. So Chris, are these top 3 in line with your expectations? And do you have anything to add?
Yeah, they are absolutely in line. Like, we obviously invest heavily in the training and development of individuals, and we recognize that leads to success in cross-training individuals and overall retention. As we said, the career development path is proven to be very successful for us. Along the way, the incentives, I love Rona's idea, by the way. So any types of incentives and learning processes for us works well. It's really helps to keep the individuals engaged, and we want to see those high marks in engagement because we know people will stay if they're engaged in what they're doing on a day-to-day basis.
That's great. Yeah. All right. So we have our final audience chat here. I'd like you to type in either the word or the number of the best option that describes the degree to which your team uses technology for knowledge validation. So 1 is manual, 2 minimal, 3 intermediate, and 4 advanced. So go ahead and pop that into the chat, and we'll see how this chart audience, this webinar audience, compares to our data. All right, I see some responses coming in. Give everyone another couple of seconds to answer. Okay. All right. So as you can see here, across 3 different training and development focused tasks, the degree to which technology is used is really varied. So the data also revealed that larger organizations with minimal or no technology see that they could be doing better in terms of knowledge validation. So I wanted to ask this one to Andrea. Silver Diner uses a question bank with over 2,800 questions, and you also leverage the knowledge score function within TalentLink. So what are the benefits of advanced technology for knowledge validation?
So just to answer what a question bank is first. So a question bank is a collection of questions that stores for repeated use across assessments. With Talent Link, we're able to separate the questions by category across the 4 concepts and can easily see how many exams each question appears on. So the knowledge validation tool is also a great plus, which helps to encourage friendly competition among our team members.
That's great. All right. And so these next 2 stats here drill deeper into how respondents plan to invest or upgrade their technology. So a little more than half of our respondents plan to invest in more training technology and programs in the next year and a half. 56% of full service and 48% of QSR are adding or upgrading technology for training. And smaller organizations, those with about 10 to 20 locations, they're really leading the way with 60% in the market for new or upgraded tech. So Andrea, I'll go to you again. Why do you think smaller organizations are leading the way in upgrading training technology?
Again, I almost forgot to unmute myself. So I think it's easier for smaller organizations because they have a unique advantage of rolling out new initiatives at a smaller scale with less channels of communication as well. So follow through is more achievable.
Awesome. All right, so we're already at our final stat, number 24. So across all segments and organization sizes, training was the top response when respondents were asked how they plan to reduce food costs in the next year and a half. So again, the results just really revealed the impact of training across so many important areas of operations. So now that we have all 24 stats and we're just a few weeks into 2024, I want to throw it again to our panelists and ask them which finding or statistic that we reviewed today they find the most interesting or surprising. So Rona, let's start with you.
You know, it was just really encouraging to me to see that learning and development shows up as a top driver across a lot of different areas here towards operational excellence. The trainings become so important. And this is really an evolution from the days when I started, where training very often was seen as a necessary evil or just kind of a fun option. So now it's more of a strategic piece towards success. And I think that's very encouraging. And it's also a call to action for us as trainers and a challenge to us to make sure that we are creating these programs that are easily accessible and executable.
Awesome. Chris, how about you?
I'm going to piggyback what Rona said. It's great to see that learning and development training gets the acknowledgement that it so rightly deserves. We've recognized it a long time out that it helps build a solid foundation for the organization across all levels. I think the biggest stat that surprises me is only 38% strongly agree ongoing development programs lead to good retention. We know that it does. We've seen it executed at the highest level for us in terms of retaining folks and allowing them the opportunity, as you said, to grow and develop within the industry is tremendous, and it's proven successful for us along the way.
Great. And then Andrea, I'll ask your opinion and then also add on to it. What do you think is the most important training strategy going into this new year?
So the most important training strategy, if you're not already doing it, which I see that there's a lot of experts already, is just to continue embracing technology. Just embracing the technology really supports training managers, instructors to better track learners' progress, make it easier to report, and also to provide feedback to the operators. It's also 100% facilitates content creation, which is top of mind given the evolving needs of the new workforce. There's a growing demand to instill hospitality skills in them, despite their shorter attention spans, which we know they have that. Therefore, technology can effectively engage them and provides a window to explore interactive and enjoyable methods to align them with their love of phones, which is very crucial for them. And paper and pen is out the window. They no longer resonate with that.
For sure. Awesome. Great. Thank you all. So we have time for some questions now. So let's see which questions came in.
So as a reminder, if you have any questions, go ahead and post them in the chat. Meanwhile, we do have a general question for you. What do you think is the most important takeaway that attendees can take back to their teams?
Right. Who wants to take that one?
I would say just continue pushing for training to be followed and be consistent with it. I mean, the data proves the proof is in the pudding. They can see that by being consistent, by actually giving them the tools, that the retention rate increases, as you guys have seen with us. I mean, I guess we're clear examples, but just continue pushing through, guys. Don't give up.
I love that. That's great advice.
I'll layer on to that if you don't mind, and that is that, you know, the ROI is critical to operators, and if you can show the value attachment to the training piece and what that plays out for in dollar savings, cost savings, labor savings, food cost and execution, you'll get a quick win, and you'll get the support needed for training, learning and development.
Great.
Great. We do have a question from the audience. What new technologies are you using to train, and is AI and VR in use? It's a good question.
I can speak to AI. We have just recently started using AI to generate voiceovers for our training videos. And that's really made it a lot more efficient for us, so that whichever person started a course doesn't have to be the one to go back and do re-recording or different parts like that. We can always use an AI voice. And there's so many options available for that. And we are now going to start using it for Spanish translation as well. So once we get written text translation, we can use an AI voice for that as well. So it's been really adding a lot of efficiencies for us.
Great.
Thanks. Andrea or Chris? Any AI or VR in your worlds?
AI definitely, VR not yet, but I did see that becoming a trend lately. And if anyone is doing it, please share or let us know how you're using it. But the use of AI has become so magical in a way that everything just pops up. It's like you don't have to think anymore. It's kind of scary, but AI is definitely helping us lead the way in training.
Great. And another question that just came in that I'm actually going to pose to Dana, because I know she knows a lot about this, and I'll be sharing a link in a moment. So the question is, ROI of training is always a hot topic. What are the best ways you've seen to establish real ROI from training? Dana, you want to share a little bit about this little resource I'm about to share?
Yeah, so in addition to the report that we're going to share, we just published a new ROI toolkit, and it goes through different areas of operations that are all obviously intertwined, and has worksheets and real ways that you can measure ROI across training, labor, inventory, other areas like that. So we'll be sure to share that out as well. But sometimes it's really difficult to, make something tangible and show how the work you're doing is, bringing value. So this toolkit, guide, whatever you want to call it, that we'll be sharing does some of the legwork for you, and will show your teams, what you can benchmark to get started, and then maybe make some goals to work for from there.
So Dana is the author of this toolkit that she's speaking of, and I shared the link above, but it does a really nice job. It has worksheets that you can download basically to go and track your assessments of different ROI opportunities. And so there's a whole section, one of the 4 sections is dedicated to training. So definitely take a look at that. Another question is, did anybody else have any thoughts about ROI though? I should ask our esteemed panel before we move on. No? Okay, great. So the next question, I am my company's first training manager. What advice do you have for me, and what platforms do you use to track staff performance?
So I will respond to that. I was the company's first training manager as well, so I know it's you feel like you have to do so many things, but I would say just take it slow, observe what is happening within your company first, see what the needs are so that you know what steps you should be taking to move forward. A great tool that I've used for tracking staff performance is either like being at the store, right? You gotta have spend some time at your locations as well. Plus also the use of just Talent Link, where it's able to show you how people are doing with the training that you're providing them and whether or not they're completing it or not. So it's like 50-50, like you have to be out in the field and you also need to use the tools that you have available. If you have any LMS, that would be the first step. Get an LMS if you don't have one.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. I think one of the first few steps that I did was just spending some time in the restaurants, talking to growth leaders, talking to operators, and finding out where the gaps were, and then just looking at what resources were already available and using that to add on to an LMS, and translating all of that into digital platforms. But an LMS definitely saves a lot of time and adds a lot of consistency to the product.
Absolutely.
And I think the next, oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. I was just piling on there. It's an absolute. We struggled for many years without an LMS and with a less than adequate LMS before Talent Link. So
I think the next question is geared to Rona. So a follow on from the AI conversation. What service are you using for AI on translating for voiceover? And it's not a silly question.
It's not. There's a lot of platforms out there. Some are free, some you have to pay for. We Googled and we found a place called 11 Labs. And this one is you get a certain number of words per user. And we just have each of our trainers have a user profile. So we haven't gotten to the point where we've reached that max yet. And we'll probably end up going to a paid platform. But using something like 11 Labs is a free way to get started on it.
Great. Great. So BYOD, which means bring your own device, or employees using their own cell phones for mobile training lessons versus in-restaurant tablets, pros and cons. What's everybody doing?
okay, I can
That's
tell you on our end, we're kind of old school. So we do allow training on their own device, but for the most part, it's done through iPads in store. Although I know that we're kind of moving in a direction, but we're definitely that old school diner that doesn't allow cell phones on the floor. So we may lose a little bit of training mobility with that.
Yeah, we're the same. It really depends. I know California has a lot of pushback on using your own device there, and there's a lot more considerations there. But we have same thing. We were encouraging our restaurant operators to get iPads and tablets to use for training. But we do have a lot of team members who choose to go ahead and use their own devices as well. So we have the app available that they can either use the restaurant's tablet or they use their own device.
And I'll just pipe in here if you don't mind that I think it's we see definitely a mix across our customer base of people doing it different ways. And I think one of the considerations to keep in mind is ensuring that if you have an app where the employee, especially hourly employees, are doing it on their device, to make sure that you're using a geofencing capability so that you can kind of track and manage where they have access to the content. So that's a definite best practice we hear from our customers. Okay, we have another question. I'm my company's first training manager too. I've created many workshops based on areas that we need to improve on. However, I'm having trouble with enrollment. Any tips on how to get managers to buy into a training culture? Ooh, that's a big one.
Yeah, I think I would say, I was going to say, Chris, it's really a lot of the competition and incentive. People like swag, people like gifts, and they like to compete with each other. So we've really drawn on that quite a bit on our end.
Yeah, I would piggyback that same thing Rona just said. From our end, it's it's the sale of the program, if you will, right? Like having people come into the workshops, participate in the seminars, they're the best sell of the seminars that you want to perform. And so them leaving with a positive vibe, great taste in the mouth, allows that culture to kind of breed from the ground up.
Great. We have another first e-learning manager and instructional designer who wants to know what is a reasonable amount of time to fully digitize and implement manager development programs from crew up to district managers.
Great question.
Who's got the magic answer? Come on.
Come on, Andrea, that's you.
I mean, it really depends on what content you're trying to create or how specific you want it to be. It can sometimes well, for me, it on average, if it's something small, it'll take me about 4 hours. But if it's something larger, like particularly for training different levels, it may take up to a day, 2 days. And if it's something that you're trying to build from ground up, there's absolutely no information on it, that's going to take you at least a week to get it done. So it just varies by what you're trying to communicate, what tools you already have available that will allow you to see how much time you need to spend on different training initiatives.
Something I'd add to that is, if you're using a learning, an LMS of some sort, we use TalentLink, and especially at the beginning, we use some of the existing courses that TalentLink had for management training. So, why create something if there's something that already exists? So we started off with a lot of those, and then some of them we reskinned to be more of our brand. But it was a great way to get started with some existing content.
Okay, great. And I'm actually sharing another link there. If anybody wants to take a look at the manager development programs we have available, feel free to peruse those. And are there any other questions? I think we may have slowed to the end. I did earlier share the link to the full restaurant report that we have reviewed. They'll also be available in the by scanning that QR code, right? And we'll share it once the recording is available as well.
Yep. So again, in this session, we just really focused on the findings that were related to training and HR, which we saw shine through in many areas of the report. But the report is really in depth and goes into a lot of other areas. So if you're a data nerd like us, go ahead and check it out. Even if you're not, it's really interesting. And maybe even validating just to see in some of these benchmarks and information. So I think that about wraps it up for today. Thank you to our panelists. You shared some really great insights, really relatable anecdotes and things like that. And thanks everyone who joined today. Hope you walked away with some valuable lessons and insights. And take care. Have a great rest of your week.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you, all the panelists, and Cindy. Thank you so much for being here. Bye, everyone.